Okay, so hi everyone, and as I said, I want to thank Nair for organising the Shiurim and everyone behind them, and Rabbis Rebbetzin Zobin, Louise, Julie Kahn, and Simon for all the technical help. And this Shiur is a zechus for all the Cholim, B'Sel Shar Cholei Yisrael, affected by any illness, and particularly by obviously this coronavirus. And so we'll just get started now. The first week, this is the third in a series of 3 on Pirkei Avos. The first week, if you recall, if you were here, we did the very first Mishnah in Pirkei Avos in chapter 1. Then we jumped right ahead to chapter 5, which was last week, when we were talking all about love. And now we're going back. Sorry for this jumping around, bouncing around the place, but it's just the way it worked out. This is Pirkei Avos chapter 2, and halacha 4, or Mishnah 4, the fourth Mishnah. Now you should have, there were 4 sheets. I hope everyone got them, which I emailed to Louise, and she did send them out. You can click on your email there, and the 4, I hope everyone has these source sheets, because they would be quite useful. So the first one is simply the Mishnah itself. Well, it's not simple, but it's just the Mishnah itself, which is, this is Pirkei Avos, chapter 2, Mishnah 4, Va'al Todin, and it's in, I highlighted, or I think did I write in because it's quite a long Mishnah, I just took out this little piece of it, which is Va'al Todin es chaveroch ad shetagilim komo. Do not judge your fellow man, your friend, until you reach his place. Now, there's a lot of Torah on this, and Chazal say, the rabbis say, you'll never reach his place, because no one can ever be in someone else's place exactly, obviously, because everyone's makeup is different, brought up differently, different emotional strengths, and so on. So you'll never be in exactly his position. So therefore, you can't judge someone, because how do you know what he or she is going through? So, but that's kind of concrete, more Peshat kind of interpretation. But I hope today we can explore a more esoteric, a more deep, more from the Hasidic point of view, more from the, you'll see as we go along, hopefully. So this year is based on the writings of Rabbi Yankee Tober, and he takes a lot of his teachings from the Baal Shem Tov, but I'll quote as I go along where things are from, and also from Shiurim by Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson and his writings as well, which are also based on the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which the Rebbe takes a lot from the Baal Shem Tov as well. So starting right at the beginning, the Baal Shem Tov, now he didn't really write as such, but he had many Talmidim, and their disciples wrote Sepharim. So this teaching comes from Sepharim by 2 of his famous Talmidim. Well, one is I'll just get the paper because I wrote it out. It's, yes, I've got it here. The Toldos Yaakov Yosef. He was Rav Yaakov Yosef of Polnoi, and he has a sefer the sefer is called Toldos Yaakov Yosef, and in his commentary on the Sedra of Teruma, he says this, and also Rab Nochem of Chernobyl, he has a sefer Moreh Naim, very famous Sedra, and it's his commentary on the Sedra of, actually this week's Sedra, one of this week's Sedras, Chukas, it says this. So Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, the Baal Shem Tov, founder of the Hasidic movement, he said, on this mission, don't judge your fellow until you reach his place. He said, your fellow is your mirror. If your own face is clean, the image you perceive will also be flawless. But should you look upon your fellow man and see a blemish, it is your own imperfections that you are encountering. You are being shown what it is that you must correct within yourself. So in other words, the way you see other people, it's really a reflection of yourself. If you see negativity in them, it's your negativity you're seeing. So we'll explore this a bit further. But what it would seem to be saying is that a complete tzaddik, a righteous person, he will never see evil in anyone, because if he's flawless, how would he possibly perceive anything negative in anyone else? And obviously that's a very difficult concept to grasp. And in the words of the Baal Shem Tov himself, he says, "Hatzadik hagomer eino ro'eh shum dofi v'shum adam la'olam." A complete tzaddik will not see any blemish in anyone ever. So, because the flaws I see in you are really a mirror of me. And if I have them, I'll see them in you. But if I don't have these flaws, then I won't see them in you. So, but that's again, it's a very difficult concept to grasp, not to see flaws in other people. I mean, I'll give you an example. If I was to invest money with a person, and then they cheat me and they lie to me and they deny our original deal and they cause me to incur huge financial loss. Is the Baal Shem Tov suggesting that if I were truly virtuous, I wouldn't perceive them as a liar and a thief? Why not? Why cannot an innocent person call a spade a spade? And furthermore, even if I do see such a person for what they really are, like a criminal liar, does that mean that I too am guilty of these abominable crimes? I mean, that's ludicrous. And surely the Baal Shem Tov isn't positing that righteousness should go hand in hand with naivety and denial of reality. And it's actually human nature to see blemishes in everyone except oneself. That's our sort of modus operandi of most people. People are always finding fault in other people, but not often do they see the same faults in themselves. And further, about not seeing faults in people or seeing faults in people, the Torah itself declares, and there's another one of the 4 source sheets. It's quoting from Vayikra. If you want to look at that, it's quoting from the Seder of Kedoshim in the book of Vayikra, chapter 19, verses 16 and 17. This is where the Torah, in one of the places, it declares to us that it's our duty to confront immoral behavior and stand up against evil acts. So like in verse 16 there in Vayikra, chapter 19, it says, Lo samad al dam re'echa, do not stand idly by the blood of your friend, which obviously has the literal meaning, if your friend's life is in danger, run to protect him, try and save him if you can. But also it could mean on a more metaphorical sense, if somebody is in danger financially or emotionally or any way, you should try and help them. Don't just stand idly by and ignore it. And secondly, in verse 17, it says, Hocheach tocheach es amitecho, you shall surely rebuke your friend. Don't bear a sin because of him. If somebody's doing something wrong, maybe they don't know. You have to point out to them in a gentle, caring, loving way where they're going wrong so that they can improve, because you can't rely someone else will tell them. If you don't tell them, how do you know someone else will? And then all their further sins until they know the truth you're accountable in some way for them. So of course we have to appropriately rebuke people. So we can't stand idly by when evil is being perpetrated. And as lahavdil, but there was a great Irish statesman and philosopher in the 1700s, Edmund Burke, and he said the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. So, if good people do nothing, then evil will flourish. So as lahavdil, Kedoshim, Vayikra 1915 and 1917 says exactly this. We have to reprove and admonish our fellow man when encountering incorrect behavior. But we said the Baal Shem Tov says that appears if that happens, if we see incorrect behavior, one has to see oneself as the source of the problem. Because if a person were pristine and pure, if I was pristine and pure, if the Baal Shem Tov, he was pristine and pure, well then how could they see, how could they not see the blemish in anyone else? I mean, just because someone is a total tzaddik, that doesn't mean they won't see blemishes in other people. And if that was the case, so instead of rebuking them, they should rebuke themselves. That doesn't make any sense at all. So if you're with me, right, if someone's holy, they don't see negativity in other people. But if someone's stealing and lying and cheating and murdering, it means if a tzaddik sees it, then he doesn't notice anything because he doesn't have those flaws. And if he does have, he should rebuke himself. It doesn't make sense. And there have been great tzaddikim, and there are great tzaddikim. In fact, the Baal Shem Tov himself, who, when appropriate, they would admonish sensitively wrong behavior. So why was this negative behavior, which was witnessed, not simply viewed as a mirror of his own behavior? If he were clean, he would not see it. So why rebuke them for his problem? So, and how could the Baal Shem Tov, a tzaddik of extraordinary proportions, see all this evil in other people? So we have to look at the words of the Baal Shem Tov in a more subtle fashion. And certainly the Baal Shem Tov was not trying to poison us with, there's a very contemporary, fashionable, the sophisticated, the so-called open-mindedness, which all the universities are pontificating, and it's all over the internet, that butchering human beings, that's not evil. It's very evil. And of course, the Baal Shem Tov upheld that on seeing evil, one must absolutely obliterate it. And as with all his teachings, the Baal Shem Tov, he was merely expressing the inner soul behind the mitzvah. And here we come to what the deeper explanation of what he was saying is. What he was saying is that there are two quite distinct ways in which one could observe negativity in another person. So first of all, it's just a descriptive quality defining that person. Or secondly, it's a reality which calls for a particular reaction from you. And Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, he gave a very, very good example which illustrates this, and it's a true story. He said that two people independently came to him. They were both working in a business, the same business, and they witnessed a third person who was doing illegal, immoral, shady, and inappropriate financial, let's call it, activities. And both of these men, they saw exactly the same thing, but each reacted in very different ways. And they came independently to Rabbi Jacobson and told basically the same story about the man whom they witnessed doing these shady dealings. But the way they told the story to Rabbi Jacobson was vastly different. One man was absolutely furious. He became obsessed with the perpetrator, saying things like, how could this lowlife act so despicably? He's vermin, the lowest of the low, and much more colorful language, which I'll spare you. But he was burning with anger. And then the other man told the same story to Rabbi Jacobson, but he came in very calmly, very composed, and he just told the story, and then he said, I just want to know what I should do morally. Should I tell my boss? Should I not get involved at all? Should I call the police? Should I inform our business associates? Very, very focused, very calm. And especially, which is remarkable, because his boss was being ripped off blindly. So Rabbi Jacobson said, with the first man, he's really concerned. What's his big concern in this? They're both witnessing the same picture, but they're both looking at it completely different ways. The first man, the man who's fuming, he is concerned about how disgraceful is this perpetrator. While the second man, he's only focused on how the perpetrator, his behavior should affect his own behavior. So basically, it's all about our reaction to a situation. If we see something negative, is it one of being obsessed with another person's failures and weaknesses? Is that where we're taking it? Is that what it's causing us to become like? Or rather, are we looking at it from a more calm point of view and saying, well, what can I do to remedy the situation? So the former reaction, in other words, people who are going wild with fury, that betrays the fact, as the Baal Shem Tov describes, that the observer also suffers from the same or a similar flaw. And seeing it in another person, that only serves to bring their own issues to the surface. It's remarkable, this is contemporary or modern psychology, and the Baal Shem Tov is writing this hundreds of years ago. So he says that when they see a similar flaw as themselves in another person, that brings their own flaws to the surface, and that's why they get terribly, terribly upset. And instead of confronting their own issues, they resort to bashing the other person, and that's done to deflect their own inadequacies. And what's driving them is not the other person's shortcomings, really, but it's their own. And that's why you get this very wild response. But the calm reaction, however, that's from someone who is secure in themselves. They don't get entangled in the whole emotional web that they witness because their struggles are not so. So they don't relate to it in that sense, but they instinctively focus on a strategy to resolve the situation. So therefore, if you observe a flaw in someone else and find yourself caught up in their problems, rather than in your appropriate response to them, we may just be struggling with a similar flaw. So the Baal Shem Tov says, take a good look in the metaphorical mirror and confront your own issues. But if you encounter something negative in someone else and you don't get entangled in endless analysis and spreading how terrible the perpetrator is, but rather you view this event as a prompt to take action to stop the behavior or to protect those at risk or potentially at risk from the behavior, then you are that pure tzaddik. That person's problem is really not your problem. It's not your failing to. And this is one reason for the seemingly redundant word in a mitzvah. Again, this is the source sheet from Vayikra Kedoshim, chapter 19, verse 17. There's a seemingly redundant word when we learn the mitzvah of rebuking our fellow man. Obviously, it says hocheach tochiach, which often the Chumoshim translate, you shall surely rebuke. It's like emphasis. But it can also be translated as repeating the same word twice, like you should reprove and admonish. But why the double, which in English basically means the same thing, but the Hasidic masters explain it differently. They say, why the double expression? They say because the first time it says hochiach, right, hochiach, they say before you admonish your fellow human being, you must first reprove yourself. That's the hochiach. Are you rebuking him or her because you yourself suffer from a similar failing? Are you, going absolutely bananas? And that's, where it's coming from, is that, but really it's your own issues. If your admonition is a means to repress or deflect your own shortcomings, then the rebuke will usually be counterproductive, because the perpetrator, they will sense your outrage, that you're not trying to help them, but you're attempting to protect yourself. So first of all, you have to look inwards first. That's a hocheach. Rebuke yourself first. Look, well, how am I reacting to this? Why am I going so crazy about what this person is doing? Think about it first. And only after you've got the hocheach, after you reprove yourself and you deal with your own similar defects, then you can try to admonish your fellow. And in other words, it's like if you've got the same faults, you're never going to be effective in banishing those faults from other people. It's like the biggest talker in shul telling people to shush. I mean, it's just not going to work. So, but generally, obviously, rebuke also has to come from love, not from anger. And if from love, you can help others confront their issues. And that is the tochiach, either when you've resolved your own issues or you're not so angry with them. It's just you want to resolve a certain situation. Then you've got the tochiach. This is the second aspect. And this is all illustrated in the narrative of Noach, back in the Sedra of Noach. And there's one of the source sheets is Bereshis, chapter 9, verses 20 to 23, which you should have. So I'm just going to find my own here. We'll just read chapter 9, verses 20 to 23. I'm just trying to find it here. 1 second. I have it written here somewhere. Right. So I'm not sure if I copied as much as I have in front of me, but I'll just read. This is Bereshis chapter 9, Sedra of Noach, verses 20 to 23. And it's after the flood, and Noach and his family were saved. And what became of Noach then? I mean, Noach lived 950 years, but we learn very little about his life. But we learn what's important for us to know. But this is I think the flood happened, he was about 500. So and the flood lasted a year. So this is what happens now in verse 20 after the flood. Vayochel Noach, and Noach began Ish Hadamah, to be a master of the soil. Vayita Koram, he planted a vineyard. And verse 21, Vayesht min hayayin, and he drank from the wine. Vayishkor, and he became drunk. Vayiskal, and he uncovered himself besaucho halo, within his tent. Vayar Cham avi Canaan, and Cham is one of his sons, avi Canaan, the father of Canaan. Eis ervas aviv, the nakedness of his father. Vayaged lishnei achiv, and he told to his two brothers, bachutz, who were outside. Verse 23, Vayikach Shem v'Yefes, they're the two other brothers, Shem and Yefes. Vayikach Shem v'Yefes, and Shem and Yefes took Es hasimla, the garment. And note, Vayikach is in the singular, and Shem is first. So the Chazal say Shem was the main protagonist here. Yefes tagged along to, so to speak, was really Shem who did this, but the two of them were involved. Vayikach Shem v'Yefes, and Shem and Yefes took Es hasimla, the garment. Vayasimu al Shechem Shneim, and they put it on both of their shoulders. Vayelechu acharonis, and they walked backwards. Vayechasu es ervas avihem, and they covered the nakedness of their father. Ufanehem acharonis, and their faces turned backwards. Ve'ervas avihem lo ra'u, and the nakedness of their father they did not see. So there's a lot of there's many questions we can raise on these pesukim, but we just want to look at the reactions of Shem, Cham, and Yafes to their father's degradation. Why? What did Cham see? It says Cham saw, right, in Vayor Cham avi Canaan es ervas aviv. Cham saw the nakedness of his father. That's in verse 22. But then it repeats 3 times in verse 23 that Shem and Yafes didn't see. They saw nothing. They were their faces were backwards. They walked backwards, and then they did not see the nakedness of the father. So the Pasuk 23 is emphasizing how Shem and Japheth saw nothing, and but in verse 22, Vayar Cham Avi Canaan, Cham, the son Cham, he saw the ervas of his father, the nakedness of his father. So why is all this so important? And Chazal tell us that the reason why Cham saw everything, it was because he struggled with immodest passions and shameful trends, that when he observed Noach in a shameful state, he saw, in more than just the literal sense, physically he saw his father, but he saw into it. He you know, the way people say, do you understand? They say, I see. They don't literally mean I physically see, but they mean I see, I understand. He got it. He saw his father's nakedness, and he saw his father as drunk and unclothed, and that was a mirror for Ham. But in verse 23, we note that Shem and Japheth, on the other hand, they were more refined. Their reaction lay solely in their duty to correct the situation. Not only did they walk backwards to avoid the physical sight of their unclothed father, rather we have the repetition of the fact 2 more times that they saw not, and this teaches us something new. And Rashi says they walked, first of all, it says they put on the shoulders. First of all, they walk backwards, but obviously they would have to know where their father is in the tent. They're walking in backwards blindly, they can't see anything, so they could in theory just throw the cloak over their shoulders, but then they could miss their father or only partially cover him. So they'd have to have some inkling of where he was in order to cover him. And Rashi says this, that they did turn their bodies around like slightly momentarily just to get a glimpse of where he was actually lying, but straight away their heads went the other way so as not to look at him, and only when they had an idea of where he was, they put the cloak. But again, they turned their heads the opposite way, and then again the pasuk repeats, they did not see the nakedness of their father. So they're going to the nth degree not to see their father. So as I say, the 3 times it's emphasized in this pasuk that they did not gaze upon their father in his degraded state. So the question is, right, just looking at the Rashi here. Right, so but then the end of the pasuk where it says the words ve'ervas aviham lo ra'u. Why? It seems so superfluous. Like, why? And we know the Torah is very, very economical with words and letters. It's not going to say anything in more words or letters than it need do. And if anything is here, it's all there to teach us a lesson. So if they walked in backwards, and if even when they realized where their father was, they quickly turned their heads, well, obviously with all that, they wouldn't have seen anything. So why does it repeat? Ve'ervas avihem lo ro'u, the nakedness of their father, they did not see. They walked in backwards, their faces turned backwards when they had to cover him. So by all means, they didn't see anything. So these 4 final words are telling us that even in their own mental experience, they saw not their father's nakedness. It's a deep message. That's why it's repeated here. It's a deep message. They saw nothing because that was not their story. Their story was just to bring light to the situation. But it was Ham's story. That's why he saw. And when they heard Ham's report, they did not see in the message a description of how lowly their father fell. It's like the business example. They didn't become wild and livid. It was just their father's story, and it was Ham's story. It wasn't their story. What they saw in this experience was their own responsibility to maintain the ethos of modesty. All they saw was, what do I do now? It was they didn't get all excited and upset. They just said, right, what do we do? They said, it's our duty now. They looked at it as, well, what do I do? And they did their duty, which was to go and cover Noach with a cloak. They didn't become enmeshed in the issues of Noach because they were already liberated from it. Their only focus was their obligation to their father and to Hashem at that painful moment. And that's in complete stark contrast to their brother Ham, who, whilst pointing at Noach, and as we see, when we point a finger at someone, if you make a fist and you point a finger, you see you may be pointing a finger at someone else, but really you're pointing 4 fingers at yourself. Don't know who said that, but I thought it's very apt. And so that's what Ham was doing.
Ruth,
Yes.
Hi, Emily. I have a question.
Sure.
Do we know who the eldest, the second, and the third of the brothers are? You probably remember. I'm sure you do.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's Shem, then Ham, then Yefes. I think that's the order.
Right, because I was just thinking Shem, Ham, Yefes. So if you say it like that, then Ham is the middle child. So bringing in the psychology here.
All right.
Middle, right? Middle children are the ones who usually don't follow because they have to fight. They have to fight for either attention, love, recognition. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wonder whether that plays a role here, but that's just by the by.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I'll have to, I mean, if anyone here knows different, please correct me. I mean, from what I remember from school, it's Shem, Ham, and Yafes in that order, but I could definitely be wrong.
No, I was just curious about the, the middle child syndrome. So
yeah, no, it could be. Well, thank you for sharing that. It could be. So, so it could be. I don't know all the deep psychology, but that could have something to do with it. So,
okay, thanks.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And so basically, the son's reaction, Shem's reaction, Ham and Yafes's reaction, they mirrored their own spiritual states. And another very important teaching from the Baal Shem Tov, which is very relevant to this, is about Hashgacha Protis, which means divine providence. And he says that a lot of the Hasidic masters say this: nothing is accidental. Nothing happens by chance. Every event in a person's life, it's predetermined. It's meant to happen. It doesn't mean we don't have free choice. Of course we have free choice how to view our situations. But when things happen, they're meant to happen. How we react to them, we have choice. But the events are predetermined. Everything's purposeful. We may not know why, but it is purposeful. And it's all an integral part of his or her divinely ordained mission in life. So therefore, a person is never going to chance upon anything. If a person witnesses an event or a phenomenon, there is a reason for this experience. There is a reason that's closely tied to their own particular path in life. So it thus follows that if Hashgacha Protis, if divine providence causes a person to see his fellow's degradation, it's for a positive and constructive end. It could be to open their eyes to a failing of their own, or it could be for them to be instrumental, give them an opportunity to help solve the situation or to warn others about the situation, to do a mitzvah. Now, if it's the former, if it's somebody sees something because they need their eyes opened to their own failings, then this is the only way that a person could genuinely recognize and deal with their own imperfections. And Hashem orchestrates it, so this will happen. And as Shlomo HaMelech writes in Mishlei, and this is in chapter 10, verse 12, he says, Val kol pasham tichasa ahava. Love covers up on all sins. And it's so true. They say that, lahavdal, love is blind, but it's true. When people are in love, they just ignore all the faults in other people, which they would go crazy with if someone in their own family had those faults. But love covers up on all sins. And what greater love is there than the love of self? A person's self-kinship, it blinds them to their own deficiencies. Yet, a negative trait or deed, so innocent and justifiable in themselves, appears in all its dreadfulness when discerned in other people, where they become appalled at the depths to which their fellow has sunk. But if they look a little closer, they too themselves may have those very same faults. So the most effective way sometimes to open a person's eyes to their own weaknesses is to show them what is wrong with their fellow humans, and to then point out to them that they too suffer from the same lack in one form or another. And if a person truly wishes to improve themselves and honestly search their heart, it's very hard to do this, but if somebody will do this until they discover what Hashem was pointing out to them, by causing them to see what they saw, then their self-love will no longer obscure what has been so glaringly presented to them as being utterly outrageous in their fellow man. So or woman, obviously. So every situation when one is tempted to judge one's fellow, when one observes what appears a problematic situation, if it's not to push us to examine our own deficiencies, which it may be pointing out my need to correct someone else's behavior or to help solve a situation. So there's different reasons why we see things, and it depends on the person, because you can have 10 people witnessing a certain situation, and each one of those 10 people will react completely differently. Some people will hardly notice, as other people will be, as they say, out of their kalim, like going completely, getting very distressed and upset for weeks on end, and someone else may not even notice it. But hashgacha pratis, divine providence, means that not only is every event particular and purposeful, but also it's every aspect and nuance has purpose. It shows each observer precisely what is applicable to them. And even when we witness a clear wrongdoing, this does not preclude yet having underlying compassion and possibly even observing, well, we've got to have understanding for the person and compassion, and maybe even observing that there might be a need for vindication for the perpetrator. So even if you see someone doing something blatantly wrong, don't let go of your avos Hashem and your avos habrios, love humankind. We're all in the image of Hashem, and you've got to judge them favorably and think, why are they doing this? Who knows the pain they're going through? And have still compassion and understanding for them. So even if we have to rebuke them. So for example, if a person, let's call him person A, witnessed a flaw in person B, and it enraged A, but he worked on himself to uproot his own negativity that was mirrored in person B, then that was the reason why Hashem determined that A should, for A's observation of B. And if person A was only meant to witness B's crime for the sole purpose of doing something about it, then that's all A would perceive. They wouldn't perceive all this negative feelings inside them. They'd only perceive, oh, he's doing this, money's being stolen, I better warn the boss. It's the cold fact. Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry.
Who's that? No, it's okay.
It's Emily again. Hi.
Good, Emily. Hi. It's
Yes,
I know I love when
because
people talk. I feel like I'm not talking to myself. Yes.
No,
please.
sorry, you heard my chair moving. I forgot I had unmuted myself. But the reason why, because yes, you're right. Ham is the second one, and Ham is the forefather of the Canaanites.
That's right. It says in the pasuk.
Also,
Yeah.
so I just want to show, because that you picked that is amazing, because the descendants, so Nimrod comes from Ham.
Right.
The Plishtim come from Ham.
Right.
So it just shows, it really reflects the
Absolutely.
soul, the way we move forward. It's quite scary in a way.
No, it's true. I mean, there is genetic, inheritance of traits, but also that's why the pasuk mentions Canaan. Why does it say Abi Canaan? Because it's telling us. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more details in the Pesukim, but it specifically mentions that to know, and Noach rebuked him afterwards, and there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to it. So, so thank you for sharing that. So he was.
Yeah, I hope I haven't thrown you off your thing.
No,
I just thought I'd share it.
No,
thank you.
I'm glad. So it is Shem, Cham, and Yafas that's in the order. Oh, excellent. Thank you, Emily. So basically, what we were saying is that, like, the person will see what they're meant to see. As the Baal Shem Tov says, everything is divinely ordained. So even if 2 or 10 or 20 people see an event, everyone will take from that event what they're meant to see. Some people will be hardly affected and barely notice it. Other people will be going completely bananas for weeks on end afterwards. So, and if if a person A sees a B perpetrating a crime, and they only see in it that they just have to rectify the situation and warn people or warn the police or seek rabbinical advice, then that is all they were meant to see. If they're calm and relaxed, they just saw the cold fact of the crime and there was no emotional turmoil. That's why they saw it. But sensing another person's guilt, looking at someone who's done something wrong and sensing their guilt and their loneliness, that's unnecessary. That's judging them. And that hinders one's ability to reach out in a loving manner. So if a person is sensing another person's humiliation or degradation, then one has to conclude that this is purposeful. And Hashem is giving the witness a mirror with which to discern their own failings. You've got to look into yourself. And this is also for Emily, because we see him in the last 2 weeks, we always keep bringing in Rabbi Kimchi. So it's obviously, this is divine providence. but Rabbi Kimchi Shlita, I vaguely recall, I'm pretty sure he says this. And I also read this I've heard it various places. I definitely read it recently in the writings of Rabbi Yankee Tober. And I do think Rabbi Kimchi said it in one of his droshes though as well. So he says, he's talking about the mirror, and the Baal Shem Tov speaks how everyone reflects, what people see in people, especially if it's negative, it's reflecting themselves. They're looking at a reflection of themselves to some degree. So what Chazal tell us is that a mirror is a clear pane of glass. That's what a mirror is, but a thin coating of silver has been applied so it can reflect the person's face. When a person's view of another person is untainted by selfish considerations, he could see beyond any surface imperfections which may exist, and thus his perception is like a clear glass, allowing unimpeded vision of what's on the other side. He is capable of seeing his fellow for what he or she truly is. They can recognize the inherent goodness, which is the essence of every person. However, once a bit of kesef, a bit of silver is involved, then man's perception dramatically changes. So if you look through, if you're looking at someone like a clear pane of glass, you'll see the chelak elokami mal mamish, as the Balatani writes, the deep soul, the perfect, pristine piece of infinity, which is Hashem in every person. But if that's clouded by, negative feelings you have about them, then you've got the silver, that bit of silver, and the perception is dramatically changed. When a person's view is coated with silver, which is synonymous with self-interest and self-love, because kesef means silver, money, and also kesef, kisui, it also means desire. So when a person's view is clouded with silver, with kesef, self-interest, self-love, desire, then you don't see your fellow man, you see yourself, because the silver makes the glass a mirror. The glass becomes a mirror, so you're looking at yourself in which all your own failings are reflected. So all your negative feelings about them, really, that's reflecting something in you. And the fact that Ham saw, and Shem and Yefes saw not, and as we say, Ham saw once, Shem and Yefes 3 times, the Pasuk emphasizes they didn't see. This captures the essence of the story, because the behavior of the brothers stemmed from deep psychological and emotional patterns. Their seeing, or lack thereof, was not merely visual, literal. It was their emotional perceptions of their father's intoxication and his exposure. Now, if we go, there's something to be gleaned further on this if we look further back in the Sedra of Noach, and this is another one of the source sheets. It's chapter 7 in Bereshis, earlier on the Sedra of Noach, if we go to verse 2, and I'll just read it there. And it says, this is when Noach was about to go into the ark, and Hashem is commanding him how many animals of each type he should bring into the teva, into the ark. So Hashem is saying, Mikol behema hatahora, from all the pure species of animals, tikach lecha shiva shiva, take for yourself 7 pairs, ish ishto, a male and its mate, umina behema asher lo tahorahi, and from the animals that are not pure, Shinaim ish ishto, 2 a man like a male animal and its mate. So Chazal ask a very important question on this pasuk, which it's like, okay, from all the kosher animals, habehema tahara, take for yourself 7 pairs, fine. A man and its mate, a male animal and its female counterpart. 2 of the lotar. But why does it say asher lo tahorihi? Why doesn't it just save all those letters and just write tome? Why asher lo tahorihi? Why all these extra words? And we know, as I've said, the Torah is very economical. It's called Horah. It's a book of instruction. It's not like a story. It's a book of instructions. We learn the laws of life from it, as the Zohar says. It's to teach us a lesson from every word, every letter. Even, I think it's Gemara in Menachos 29b, where it talks about Rabbi Akiva, and he says, even the crowns on the letter, Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu about Rabbi Akiva, and he's saying there will be a man in future generations, and even the crowns on the letters he will derive loads of halachas from. So, and as we've seen in Megillas Rus, even a dot, like called the mapik hay, the lack of a dot in the hay, or yes, a dot in the hay, we can learn so much from. So everything is very important. So if every word, letter, crowns on a letter, dots, no dots, why? And the Torah was not going to waste extra letters and extra words. So why is, unless we're going to learn halachas from it or learn something from it, otherwise it won't be there. So why does it not say in this pasuk, just say, instead of, and from the impure animals, just say, umin ha-behema ha-tamea, instead of umin ha-behema asher lo taharahi. So, and then you'd save all those extra words and letters. And if anyone wants, this is, I read this in the Gemara in Pesachim in page 3. If anyone wants to look it up, it goes into great detail. And what we learn from here is to speak. It says, we learn from here that we should always speak eloquently, and in a refined way, not with coarse, brute, negative language. It says, Le'olam yidaber ha'adam belashon nekiah. Forever man should speak with a clean language. So, I mean, obviously, if you say the word tome or lo tahara, it's the same thing. You know, it's like saying, is the table not dirty or is the table clean? So, or not clean or dirty. You've got the same message, but the Torah is saying, no, our language has to be very clean. But then the Gemara argues the word tome is in the Chumash more than 100 times, very frequently. So how come here, you know, they're saying, no, we can't use impure language, have to say lo tahara, don't use the word tome. But yet the Gemara answer, you know, says there's many times the word tome is used, over 100 in Chumash. So then the commentators on the Gemara say that the difference is that, so this commentary is not in the Gemara itself, it's the commentators on the Gemara, it's not explicit in the Gemara. But what they say, what's the difference? Because the word tome is in the Torah loads of times, but yet here in the Seder of Noach, it calls the animals lo tahara instead of just calling them tome, which is exactly the same thing. The commentators say the difference is it depends if the Chumash is dealing with a narrative, a story, or with halacha. So, just to elaborate on this a bit, if you've got a halacha, a story or a narrative, then the Mefarshim say the Chumash will couch the information in nice, elegant, dignified language. For example, the story of the flood. So you've got lo tahara. Won't use the word tome. It's brute, it's coarse, it's nasty. It's like saying they're impure. However, if you're dealing with halacha, then the Torah will use the word tome. And because we could be, with halacha, you've got to be very precise, very clear, very emphatic, and very unambiguous. You've got to call a spade, call it exactly what it is. We've got to know what we're dealing with. But what is the difference? Apart from different words, what difference if it says unclean animals, tamea or tome, or animals that are not clean, lo tahara? And the answer is that it represents two ways of not only saying the word, but of like
perceiving.
Perceiving, viewing the world, WRLD. It's perception. It's not just saying it like tome lo tahar. It's the same thing. It's essentially the same thing, but it's how we view things. So just to elaborate on this, so basically, again, remember, the commentators on the Gemara in Pesachim, page 3, say, if it's a story or a narrative in the Chumash, it will always use very dignified, elegant language, and it will say lo tahara. It won't use tame, it won't use negative language. But when we're dealing with halacha, yes, of course, the word tame will be used very clear. That's tame. This vessel is tame. The person is a Masorah, he's tame. The place is tame. Put these whatever it is in a tame place. Very unambiguous. So back to our story, the true story of these angry businessmen who came to Rabbi Jacobson, Shlita, and the first one, he was fuming at his colleagues' less than noble sort of extracurricular business activities. Deep down, he may have been jealous. What was going on? Why was he so livid? Because deep down, he may have been jealous that he feels, oh, he's on a paltry salary and he could have had this money, or or another thing, he actually could have had similar ambitions, so to speak, himself, but he never had the nerve to act. So he's jealous that this man actually did it. Or maybe he did try in the past to do something similar, but he was unsuccessful. So in other words, this whole episode is unleashing unresolved layers of his own identity. But the other man, who acted in a very calm and wholesome way, he simply wanted to find a path to take to resolve the situation and protect those who needed protection. So the first man who basically exploded, the criminal was already living in his mind. So discovering the story just awoke the criminal within him, which is why he went completely wild. But the other man, he had total detachment. So he was basically cool as a cucumber. And that's why the Baal Shem Tov said it's a mirror. Who you are determines what you will see. And here's where we go back to Noach and the words. I just wanted to interject that, but it's relevant when we go back to Noach and the words Tomei and Lo Tahora. Tomei, impure, Lo Tahora, it is not pure. They essentially mean the same thing. It's like me saying the table is clean. Is the table clean? You could either answer me, it's dirty, or you could say it's not clean, but you've conveyed the same message. But the point is, vis-a-vis viewing situations, or back to the Mishnah, which we started with, judging people, we must ask ourselves, and as the commentators in the Gemara say, are we dealing with a story or are we dealing with a halacha? So if it's a halacha you're dealing with, the questions are, do I protect, like when you see something that seems not right and maybe you need to do something about it, you've got to ask yourself, do I need to protect my family? Do I need to protect my boss, my colleagues? These questions are very goal orientated. They're very precise. It's halacha. It's like, what is my calling? What do I do with the information I have garnered? That's halacha, right? The halacha. But if you're seeing the situation as a story or a narrative, then suddenly the issues I see in you, they become my issues, because a person is analyzing it all with angry opinions, because all of this is really to do with you, with them, with the observer, and not the so-called perpetrator. It's my thoughts about their behavior which are making me livid, not what the person actually said or did. It's how I'm processing it. It's the effect it's having on me. Again, the same events to another person mightn't trigger anything. So when another person's character is overwhelming you, says the Baal Shem Tov, you need to look within yourself and seek out your own flaws. And it's not about guilt, it's about divine providence, purposefulness, and it's about empowerment. It's to help you. So, because Hashem loves you so much, he wants you to maximize yourself. And that's why he's making you see this, so you can bring out the best in you. So it's without, if you didn't have any personal negative issues, then your response would be halachic, non-story-like. It's just a calling to act. Therefore, when it's halacha, we could use the word tomei. And in many places in the Torah, we said over 100 times, there's many examples in Shemini and Re'eh, when it talks about the laws of kashrus, they call a spade, and animals that are not kosher, they're called tomei. And many other places, the Torah is very precise. It's if the things are not allowed, we're not allowed to eat them, they're called tomei, or vessels which need immersion in mikveh, they're tomei. People with saras are tomei, places are tomei. It just calls it tomei, it's halacha. But when the Torah, and we learn from the Torah, if you're seeing another person's blemishes and you're becoming enraged by them, that's called a narrative situation. And in a story or a narrative situation, you cannot say a person is tomei. Again, back to the Mishnah, don't judge someone, don't even call them tomei. Because the Torah is teaching us from the Noach narrative, you cannot even say an animal is tomei. They're described as lo tahara, because it's not telling you don't eat these animals, then it's tomei, we need to know halacha. They're talking about which animals were brought into the teva. There's many reasons why they were, but lo tahara, don't describe him as tomei, unclean, impure. Describe him as lo tahara. And there's different reasons why they brought in more kosher. They're maybe for sacrifices afterwards, and that's a whole other discussion. But don't even call an animal tomei if you're in a narrative. So kal v'chomer, don't call a person anything negative. So about the word tomei, it's reserved only for halacha. It just describes my obligation, my responsibility. It's a law for me. We're not describing anyone or anything negative, just the cold dictates of the law, like there's emotional detachment. So these words, lo tahar, or lo tahara, and tomei, they provide extraordinary valuable information. As the Mishnah says again, don't judge your fellow man until you come to his place. Don't judge anyone until you've reached his place. You may need to reach his place. How are you going to reach his place, or get approach near his place even? You've got to look inside yourself. You've got to one has to resolve one's own issues. And only then, without all your inner conflicts, then again, you can look at the person from a clearer emotional arena. And it's not easy, but it's a very big opportunity for us to see what we need to be working on. Sometimes I'm not the judge. I just need to find solutions. But sometimes I need to look at myself. And whereas Ham saw, not just physically, but he saw the evil, he saw the negativity, he recognized his own failings, he still struggled with unresolved issues. And the text is very telling. When he saw, what did he do? What did Ham do? He told his brothers. That's what people tend to do. Oh, did you see what so-and-so did? He did this, she said this. You know, they have to go and report. Obviously it's affecting him deeply. Why didn't he just cover his father himself? Why? Because it was a mirror, as the Baal Shem Tov says. It was a mirror. What he saw in Noah, he saw something that he felt, this is morally reprehensible. And that was him. He had those traits within him, and he acted in a morally reprehensible way, Chazal say. So, to Noah, they say as well, but also in his immediate reaction with the situation, just cover him. And why are you just telling your brothers? But Shem and Yefes, they only saw, so basically Ham was a narrative thing, whereas Shem and Yefes, they saw halacha. They saw it as halacha. What do they see? They saw their responsibility. In other words, what is the law? What do I need to do now? And they got rewarded for this mitzvah. And the reward of Shem, as we said, Shem and Yefes, they're slightly differing in what they actually did in the mitzvah. That's why Shem got rewarded in a different way than Yefes. He got a higher reward. As we said, the use of the word vayikach and not vayikru, it was mainly, Shem was the main protagonist here. And his reward, which is the Jewish people, we're descended from Shem, he got the mitzvah of talus. Why? Because he covered his father with a garment. And what is a talus? A talus covers a person so they cannot see. But there are certain things we should not see, and there are things we should see. And if we look at the third paragraph of the Shema, when it talks about talus and tzitzis, and it talks about the tzitzis, and it says, Re'isem oso, you should see them, and remember all the mitzvahs of Hashem. When you look at tzitzis, you should remember the mitzvahs of Hashem, but you've got to see them, see the tzitzis. But also, it tells us what not to see. Later on in that paragraph, it says, don't go after, do not go after your heart, and after your eyes. So don't look. The talus is covering you, certain things you shouldn't be looking at. But yet, look at the tzitzis and remember the mitzvahs. So it's a question of what you choose to see. Certain things you shouldn't be seeing. You should be covering your eyes, and certain things you should be seeing. So, and obviously, when it says there's a lot of chazal on this. They say is all to do with idol worship, but it's not just like immoral, immodest things. Also, I mean, it's, everything, like if even desire for food, you should really, the highest level is to want to eat food, not because, oh, this chocolate cake is delicious, but because this is something healthy that will nourish, keep my body and soul together, and I can serve Hashem. Obviously, it's almost impossible to do this, but that's what achrei nechem means. Don't be looking or lusting after food or whatever it is for its own value, but in how it can bring you closer to Hashem and how you can use it to serve Hashem. So that's obviously a higher level, but this is the way we have to see things. See certain things you need to look at and need to see, and certain things you've got to avoid looking at. So it's a question of what you choose to see. And the same as we've elaborated, hopefully, in the shir, when viewing people, is Hashem trying to tell me something about me? Am I jumping the gun? Or why am I showing sensitivity to this person? Or maybe I just need to help them in some way. And the word tzitzis, talking about tzitzis in the third paragraph of Shema, it also means insight. It means perspective. So when you see the tzitzis, it could mean go beyond the surface, look at the deeper picture when doing mitzvahs, or in our whole approach to Yiddishkeit, and when we view other people, look deeper, look beyond the surface. Don't rush when you're getting all very angry, upset by what someone said or did or didn't say. Calm down, count to 10 and relax and think about it more deeply. So our question in these very challenging times is, do we see the real core of reality, or do we get distracted with all the externals, and thus denying ourselves the golden opportunity to become truly self-aware by looking at things from a more deep point of view? And my bracha to everyone is that we should look beyond the externals and gain a deeper vision, a deeper insight, until we experience the ultimate light and vision. B'vias God tzedek Mashiach b'meher v'yameinu. Amen. And that is that is the end of the share, but I'm happy to take questions, or if anyone has anything to say, I'm more than happy to listen. Silence.
No, I'd like to say something.
Thank you, Naomi.
I'd like to say that this is a problem that has bothered me for a long time. And
Right.
your share has actually clarified it for me for the first time, because I've read many times that, you know, if you see a fault in somebody else, it's because you have it yourself. And, you know, some of the faults you think you don't have. I mean, no one, I don't think you know, I'm perfect, but, you know, certain faults that I see in others, there's some I thought I didn't have those. But you've explained it's the intensity. If you just say so-and-so is very, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
If you just say it's so-and-so is very whatever, then okay, is there anything I can do about it? Is there anything I can help? If you can, good. If not, it's nothing to do with you.
Yes.
If you react and it's in your mind and you're upset, then it's because you've got an agenda with this area. You've got your own agenda. Now, that's the first time in my life I've ever understood it, and I'm really so grateful to you. And I'd love to know if you're giving more shiurim, because I want to be on your Zoom list, really.
Oh, thank you very much. I don't know, it's up to Nair, but I have a private group, so you could, if you give me your email afterwards, then, or put it in the chat, then Belina, I can add you to it, and so you're welcome to come to those. They happen like once a week.
I'm terrified to press any buttons. I'm really technologically very, very limited. But my name is just Naomi Jacobs 613@gmail.com.
Oh, right.
Naomi Jacobs 613@gmail.com.
Okay, I was writing that down now.
So thank you. Brilliant shir. Brilliant. Absolutely wonderful.
As I
Enriching.
say,
Thank you so much.
No, Bruchati, but as I said, it's all from the sources I quoted.
Ruth, hi, it's Emily again.
Oh,
I have
Emily,
to
hi.
say you.
Hi.
There. I love your show, I really do. And you mentioning the tzitzit and that it's inside has triggered a memory. Unfortunately, I only heard the tale of that Dvar Torah, and that was given by
Rabbi Kimchi?
no, Mrs. Michaels. I think it's Dina Michaels. No, that's the daughter.
Ruth Michaels?
Yes, Ruth Michaels, and she mentioned about the tzitzit, so she went a bit, I only heard the tail bit, so maybe you can tie it in what I'm trying to say here. The knots in the tzitzit represent something, and these numbers reoccur in the Torah quite often. I think it's 1, 7, 8 being Brit Milah, 7 Shabbat, 1 Hashem.
Oh.
There was something, does that ring a bell?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. That's the truth. I haven't gone into it. I thought there was something in the tzitzis to do with the number of commandments, but I really don't.
Yes. I think in total, as I said, I only heard the last bit. I think the total, if you add it all up or multiply or something like that, it comes to 613, yes. But there was, because you have to, if I remember this correctly, you've got to make knots, but you also you wrap it around the 3 chord. 1 chord goes around the 3 chords, I think.
Oh, I don't know. That's the truth.
And Nigel will look it up for me. Otherwise, I might ask for the papers. But that probably will tie in with the fact that it's inside perspective.
Yes.
And Talis mitzvot, you know, as you mentioned, all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, tzitzis means, the word tzitzis means inside perspective. Yeah, no, unfortunately, I don't know any of that. But while you're speaking to me, everyone, but Emily, I wanted to say as well that I heard, and I don't know where this is from, I heard Rabbi Jacobs talk about one of his lectures, but I know you like words and numbers and things like that.
Yes, so I do.
What's the Hebrew word for worry?
Lidog, daga.
Excellent, dag. How do you spell daga?
Daled, Aleph, Gimel, Hey.
Right.
Daga.
Right. So what letter is missing if you go with the alphabet? Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled, Hey. What letter is missing from
The
this?
base.
Correct, the Beis is missing. So why have you got Daga? Because the Beis, the bitachon, the faith, the confidence, security,
Oh,
is missing.
brilliant.
As the song
Love
says,
it.
could be from there, Rizal, I don't know. As the song says, you know, Yisrael b'tach b'Hashem, you're missing the bitachon, you've got Daga. And if you have bitachon, then you don't have anxiety. Yes, there are challenges. Everyone has challenges, but wherever we are, wherever we travel, we're in the arms of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Right.
It's like, Rav Chaim Shmulevitz says this in the Sichas Musar. And again, I think he was the teacher of Rabbi Kimchi.
Right.
I think so. But he says that, like, wherever you're going in life, it's like if you imagine a baby traveling in his mother's arms, and she goes from New York to Italy to Hong Kong to China to Australia to South Africa to Moscow, and the mother's like exhausted, and you ask the mother, where were you? And she said, oh, I was in New York, Hong Kong, China, South Africa, Moscow, wherever, and I'm exhausted. I've been traveling, airports, queuing up, packing, unpacking. If you ask the baby, if the baby could talk, where were you? What would the baby say? The baby would say, I was in my mother's arms. So whatever. So that's what Rav Chaim Shmulevitz says. He says we're in the arms of a Kodesh Baruch Hu wherever we travel, and that's the bitachon. So
I love it, Ruth. I love it. So I'm going to tie it in with COVID-19 because
yes.
we are in the arms of Hashem. There's no point worrying. We just got to have faith.
Exactly. And the more faith you have, the less you have to worry. It's like the Lubavitcher Rebbe, that's in the 1950s, someone wrote him a letter, a man, and he said, I'm working as a shochet, and his father had died, and he said, and I'm earning a nice parnasa, and in the town I'm in, there's no minyan. So, and I want to earn the money because I need to support my family, and I want to pay for my father's mitzvah and everything. But on the other, there's no minyan. So, and he had two brothers in another town, they were saying Kaddish. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote back to him, and he said, this is the 1950s, he said, seeing that your two brothers are saying Kaddish, and seeing, you're earning a parnasa, and it's very important to earn a parnasa, that's very important, and it's a mitzvah, and also you can use the money, you have to pay back for it, for the mitzvah and for the burial expenses of your father, that's all very important, and I would say pay someone else to say Kaddish for you, and that's okay. So that, seems like a good solution. But then he wrote at the end of the letter, and this is astounding, amazing, he said, I don't really know you, and if you are on the level of bitachon, where you realize parnasa, it all comes from Hashem, then I would say just move to a town that has a minyan, and you'll manage fine. So it's all a question. I know it's a very, very hard thing to do, but it's
a matter of faith, or the yod
yes,
and I.
I know. If you have to be on the on the level of that, how much effort you put in. It's like, I think, who is it? I think it was the Baal Shem Tov himself. He needed some money or whatever, so he went. The Hasidim were following him, and he went to someone's house, a rich man's house. He knocked on the door, and then he just walked away and went back to his learning. And all his Talmidim said, "Well, what are you doing? You just knocked. You didn't even wait." He said, "Yeah, but there's amount. How much effort I put in. It is, I just put in as much as I need. I don't need to put more effort than that. I did my effort. That's it. I'm going back to learn now." And the man from the house came running out and gave him money and everything. So it's all, it's like it's a very, very hard thing. But the more bitachon, then the more you're operating outside the world of nature, the more Hashem to you outside the world of nature. And the more you make yourself dependent on nature, then the more you are dependent on nature.
Yeah.
So there's, many, many more examples. There's another very good example. I'm trying to think who it was. I think it was the Tzemach Tzedek in Russia, back in Russia there, when they used to conscript all the Jewish soldiers to the young children. They used to take them, kidnap them, and put them in the army because they were trying to obliterate Yiddishkeit from their lives.
Yes, correct.
And so there were these men who they were doing good. They would help them. They would help the families, and they would try and, feign certificates that the boys were ill so they didn't have to go to the army and all kinds of things. And they'd save a lot of children. It was a very good thing. And one man he was doing this, all of a sudden he realized the Cossacks or wherever they were after him because they knew what he was doing, and his life was in great danger. So he went to the rabbi, I think it was the Tzemach Tzedek at the time. He went to him and said, "What do I do?" So the first question he asked him was, "Do you get paid for this?" There's no problem, paid for it, but do you get paid? He said, if you get paid, then your life is in danger and you have to flee. But he said, if you don't get paid, if you're just doing this, the Shem Shemayim, then you're fine. Just carry on. It's fine. You won't be affected. So
Amazing, huh?
it is. It is.
Really is amazing. Ruth, thank you so much. I've got to
Thank you.
love and leave you because it's getting noisy here. So
Yeah, no problem, no problem. And also, if anyone, thank you very much, Emily. No problem at all. Thank you for all your amazing contributions, and everyone else. Thank you for joining. And does anyone have any questions or comments, or I'm very happy to hear, and we can all learn from what anyone would like to share. Don't be shy. Okay, well, that's fine. So thank you very, very much, everyone, for joining. And I wish you all a very, very good Shabbos. And thank you so much for joining us all today. And have a lovely Shabbos. And hopefully we'll meet again, not too distant future, for some more learning. Take care, Koltiv. Good Shabbos.
God, good Shabbos to you. Looking forward to your next year.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you.
Look in the chat.
Oh, look in the chat. Yes, I should look in the chat. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you.
Thank you. It was
I
wonderful.
didn't look in the chat. Oh, Irene, thanks for
Thank you.
Ham is the youngest son. Thank you. Oh, Ham is the youngest son. Thank you. I must
Yeah.
look that up. I
Well,
must
I've
look
got
that up.
it right there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I must look that, write this down now. This is 20. Yeah, well, I wasn't sure. Shem, I always thought he was the middle one. Shem, Ham, and Yafis. Ham is the youngest. Oh, Irene, I'll add you on. Thank you. Trying this. Oh, thank you for telling me. I always forget to look at the chat. It's terrible. So I've probably ignored loads of people's messages. So if that's the case, I sincerely apologize, but it's for technical reasons, I assure you.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, then Michelle Stern. Thank you very much, Michelle. The word tzitzis has value 600. Each tassel has 8 threads when doubled over and 5 sets of knots, totaling 13. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Sorry,
That's
Ruth.
great. Yes.
Ruth, the thing about Ham being the youngest, it's
Yes.
Bereshit 9:24, not what I wrote there. It's Bereshit
Okay, I'm right.
9:24. Yeah.
Okay, I'm changing it now, 9:24. I'll look that up.
Sorry.
Thank you very much, Irene. Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing you.
Oh, thank you. I look forward to meeting up and learning with you all again. Definitely. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm going to write your name. Let me see. I've got that. Teresa. Yeah, I've got your email. And thank you, Michelle, thank you very much, Michelle, for that information about the tzitzis. And thank you, Irene, for your information about Ham being the youngest son. And thank you very much. I really look forward to seeing you all again. I wish you all a very happy, healthy, illuminating Shabbos, filled with light and joy and peace and good health and happiness.
Shabbat
So, Shabbat Shalom, Kol Tuv. Thank you. Good Shabbos. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you. Good Shabbos.